Robertson Show.
Stuff. Yeah, man. No, but dude, I really appreciate you being here. I do this 2:30 show, try to do it on Mondays live. So welcome everyone for being to the Jeff Robertson Show. Let me tell you about our guest today. I'm joined by Brent Colbert, veteran police officer, doctoral student, and leadership professional who's committed to growth every single day. Brent knows firsthand that failure's not the end. After leaving law enforcement during COVID, he faced setbacks that tested his identity and purpose. But instead of staying down, he chose to rebuild and now carries a powerful message. Failure is okay. It's how you respond that matters. Brent is building a life, a career coaching practice to help others embrace growth through resilience, learning, and leadership. Man, I really appreciate you being here. There's a lot of words that come out and speak to my own journey that I probably wish I'd have had a guy like Brent in my life many years ago that could help me navigate some of my own shortcomings. So thank you for being here, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me today, and I'm excited to be here.
Any opportunity I get to talk cops and robbers, man, I enjoy talk cops and robbers. I had um, I've been working, Brent. I've been working on this a little bit of because I got to do a lot of drug work. A lot of my law enforcement career was centered around um, just working drug trafficking. And I get one of the best conversations, man. I had John Wildside on the other day. For you, he'd be great for your podcast. Recovered meth addict, has a amazing story of his daughter's impact on him and how she kind of helped flip that switch and got him back on track, man. And he's absolutely blazing. So I get to have folks from both sides on my show, and then I'll give my perspective. He's like, "Well, this is what we were doing." I'm like, "Well, this is how we were catching y'all," and just different stuff on just the little capers that we used to pull on both sides, man. So you get to have the other perspective today.
Yeah, and here's the deal. I truly believe that people like that turn their lives around, we have to celebrate their wins as well.
Yeah.
Um, Addiction's a powerful thing, and when people can turn their lives around, you truly have to celebrate that as well. And so I love hearing stories like that. Don't get me wrong, I love catching criminals, but I also like hearing success stories when they turn their lives around.
That's good. I mean, I think when you look at what police officers do, sometimes police intervention or interaction, whatever how you want to put it, is your first step into that change or whatever it may be. As far as being able to step into find some help. Back in my day, we were talking about just how I'm kind of dated, but someone going to jail was the first step to rehabilitation. It's the only place we could put them to where they could find services and help and drug treatment and things that they needed. So as negative as going to jail was, there was a lot of positives that came out to just be able to get somewhere where they could dry out, be able to approach life with a clear mind. I'm not necessarily big on let's stack a bunch of fines and necessarily overburden them with a lot of, but the system has to be paid somehow, and I understand that. But I think as far as a lot of times when you look at police interactions, is it helps folks get to where they need to be going and helps clean up some families, and so there's a lot of positives that come out of those negatives. The other thing I'll tell you, dude. Was drug dealers were some of the absolute best business people. The way they ran their organizations is the way that Fortune 500 runs. When you step that down into some of your local areas that have a little larger impact, is some of the folks that are sitting at the top of those seats. They run that organization just like they would your local, any local significant employer, your manufacturer, whoever. So those guys are some of the best business minds. So for folks that are coming out of prison. I've had worked with those guys. I help them start businesses now, where they're coming to me. Hey man, I got this. I'm like, no big deal. It's like this is a skills you know how to do. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you do them from the legitimate side. Human resources, they're some of the best. But that's like you can't fire with violence like y'all used to. You got to fire with the letter, and they're like, come on, man, let me do it my way. Um, but those are some of the best freaking business people to learn from, Brent.
Oh, 100%. And I've told some of them before, like, you need to apply those talents to the good side of the law, because you guys are a lot smarter than I am on how you guys operate.
Yeah.
And we always kind of chuckle at it like, "Oh, yeah, you're right." But I've seen a few of them turn their lives around, and that's, like I said, that's what we need to celebrate. And I want to touch on something you talked about. The one thing that they've really implemented over the past 20 years, roughly, that I think has truly been successful has been drug court.
Yeah.
in that those type of things are that they, they set those punishments up in advance and say, hey, if you don't follow these terms and conditions of your drug court, then you will go to prison or jail, county jail, whatever the case may be. But the good thing about it is they are so tough that it forces those people to clean their act up
Yeah.
and get clean from drugs and get a job and stay committed to getting back on that right path. And you hear a lot of success stories at drug court because they're so hard to complete that they have to get their life back in order.
Yeah. You're, I think the system, like it does, there's so much help, man. You can't, I've told people that before, whether you're, no matter where you're in life, there's so much people, there's so much help, there's so many people trying to help. Sometimes we just don't like the way they're helping. And it
Yep.
doesn't, I think that's, is we want to be helped in a certain way, in a certain manner. So I think it leads into that as well. But there's, man, police work was so good to me. Like it was very. I had a public safety in general was absolutely some of the best times. And but I think it. I think I tell folks too is it also leans you into where you lead sometimes, and I have to remind myself if I'm not careful, I'll lead with a negative. I'll just automatically look at like this is where we're headed. I'm gonna tell you how this is getting ready to end, but I'm influenced by what I'm influenced by.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. It's
The other thing I
it,
think you look at too with Brent, and I grew up in a rural county where moonshine was acceptable. It's illegal, but it was they made it. They did all these things, and when I say it's acceptable, when those guys would end up in court, sometimes they would not be convicted of something significant. It would be a lesser crime, or the punishment would be light, and the judge would say, "Listen, man, they're only doing what they know." And when you get into just the culture in general, sometimes just helping people find a new way out, dude, and showing them because they only know what they know. If you're were raised in a home that has drug culture that's readily available and there's arguing going on or whatever that might be, until you're exposed to something that's a new normal, you might think that's your normal life.
100%. And that's one mindset I've always tried to keep in law enforcement is that I have to understand that they're not necessarily going to have the same mindset that I come into things. And, we have to enforce the law. Sometimes that's not fun, but we can keep the mindset of, hey, we may have to enforce the law, but how can we also help you get back on that right path? And
Yeah,
so, kind of like you said, that may be the culture they were raised in. Let's help change that mindset through the court system and say, hey, how can we help you get on the right path? How can we make you productive members of society instead of just throwing that book at them and sending them to prison? Because all prison does 95% of the time is turn them into better criminals.
yeah,
But we need to give them skills to turn their lives around. And so I have to try to keep that mindset of how can we help people and not just throw the book at them?
yeah. But good friend of mine when because cops are notorious for arguing. Like we argue over some of the pettiest things because we have those boundaries. A lot of doing drug work, there's no boundaries. They don't stop at the county line. They don't.
Yep.
They there's no they're just doing their thing. We're police officers. We tend to have negative interactions based on our cases spilling into other areas and things along those lines. There's friction points. And once the cops start fighting, bad guys win type thing was what I always used to preach. Like if we can control this, but it's the whole reason. And if you go back to anybody you ask, the whole why'd you get into this job to help people? Like you got so when you're no matter where you're at in how you could if I was in charge here, this is how I do it. When you're having all those moments and when you get frustrated, is you got to go back and remember I got into this to help people. We lose
Yeah,
that.
100%. And, like I said, there's nothing more I love than catching a good criminal. But you also have to realize that there's a person behind that, criminal act.
Yeah.
And as much as you want to, throw the book at them and say, man, I'm never going to see you again. Good luck. See you in 30 years. It's not realistic. And, don't be wrong. There's going to be times, a murder, something like that, where they're not going to get back out. But
Yeah.
most of the time, they're going to end up being a member of society
Yeah.
again. And we really need to help them get back into society the correct way.
Could easily
And
be your neighbor. Could easily be a neighbor. Your kids, like when where I worked at, is my kids would be going to school with their kids. Like we're all from the same neighborhood, same county. We all know each other. Um, yeah, you're
100%.
right.
And and that's I think a lot of cops lose that mindset of, hey, I'm here to help people. They
Yeah.
just get so caught up in the, we're gonna go catch the criminals. Dude, there's a whole bigger picture beyond just catching a criminal. And we got to remember that.
Mad at administration too, mad at the system. I think sometimes where I will point out to folks, um, when you get into the police officer's done something and we catch a half-sided video or maybe a full-sided video, there's a lot of what I think sometimes what I try to point out to people if it ever comes to me and I'm like, listen, you see the traffic stop and you see that what you where the police person don't want to get out of the car is arguing, why'd you pull me over? You got to tell me why you pulled me over. And it's like, hey, go ahead, step out of the car because the officer's based off his training. That what I've told someone that came up when that negative interaction from law enforcement happens, I go, change the law. Stop. The police officers just doing what they're being sworn to do, the policy, that if they're writing tickets or for whatever it might be, whatever that situation is if you don't want them to do that, change the law. But sometimes those um, laws that are put in place, they are there for whatever reason, but then when it ends up being a negative interaction, everybody's like, well, I didn't have nothing to do with that. No different than police training. Like those guys, right now they're going through way more. I think mine was 15 weeks. They're like at 6 months now, training wise, and you can't cover it, but when you have that interaction is the first thing like we see some of when it hits the news is the police chief may be like, yeah, that's not the way we want to do things, whatever. Well, were they following policy, and did they follow the training that you as a police chief signed off on at your academy? And then in order to do that, so did your city manager or your town or whoever. Everyone signs off on this is what we want. Um, so it's hard to disavow that sometimes. And the people that wear it is that officer who's like, I was just doing my job. Um, I see that a lot too.
What's funny? I'll never forget. We had a local sheriff's office that they were taking I think it was a domestic violence case one day or kidnapping, something along those lines. And they gave out a description of a car to look for, and they said, "Hey, it's a early 2000s silver Ford Explorer." Well, as I'm sitting, and this occurred like literally right on the city boundary. Well, within about 10 minutes, here comes a silver Ford Expedition. Same time frame. I mean, most people are Explorer, Expedition, those are
Yeah,
pretty similar. And so they said this male had kidnapped a female. I think that's what it was. And there was a male, and when they drove by me, the female wouldn't look at me. I'm like, man, I don't know if that's the car for sure, but I'm going to at least stop and see if that's who I'm looking for, right?
yeah,
So I stop them. She slow rolls me to the next stoplight. I get out, try to go make contact. She takes off again, goes the next stoplight. So I get out again. And we do this for like a quarter of a mile. So I go up there, and at this point, you're doing a felony traffic stop. You're calling them out at gunpoint because they keep, every time you get out the car, they're driving off.
yeah,
And they're not really like trying to get away, but they're not stopping either. And so I call her out, and she's crying. I said, ma'am, this is why I'm interacting with you. Like there's a kidnapping that occurred just outside town, car matching this very similar description. Well, the male passenger gets out and immediately cussing us, non-compliant, just giving us the riot act. We cuff him up, don't slam him, don't do anything to him, nothing. We ended up determining they're not involved in this situation. He just had some negative interactions with law enforcement, I think in California, if I remember right. He shakes our hand and says, man, I'm sorry the way I acted. I should have handled that differently. We get done. Not even 2 hours later on Facebook, there is a post from some local blogger that's like, you know, local police department roughs up this guy. They racially profiled him, all kinds of stuff. And what's funny is I didn't even get named in the complaint, and I'm the one that made the traffic stop. But the craziest thing is like the whole thing they said in there was just completely false. It wasn't true. But they were out there trying to make a name off of, a police interaction, and I'm like, it didn't even go that way. But our administration, they're not going to let you address it.
Yeah.
And it finally just died out and it never went anywhere. But it was literally, we're trying to save somebody that got kidnapped. And all it would have taken was us going up there and saying, hey, you're not who we're looking for. They don't stop. They keep going a quarter mile, stop and taking off. Guy gets out very confrontational as soon as we get out of the car. And then an hour later, we're on Facebook that, we're out there slamming them on the ground and all kinds of stuff. And there's an eyewitness to this, and all we did was put them in handcuffs.
Yeah.
It's the wildest thing, and
Now,
everybody,
here's all right. So here's what I tell everybody. This is what I always kind of the example I like to use. You heard what Brent said. You've read the book. You've read the novel where you're flipping the page, true story, fiction, whatever it wants, to where the lady in the novel at this point in time goes, I just wish the officer would have done a little more, I would still be here. Right? Or you get all those other sides to where you have stopped the right car, the male passenger is all the things that the complaint has says it is, and you saved the day, and you've got all the things, and out of that sometimes is when it closely matches the description, when it does all those things, is like you're caught like, well, if I don't, and I can't imagine having to live with that one on the other side. Had that been a way, and you'd have been like, you know what, it's not an expedition, I'm gonna let it slide, and it ended up being, man, whew, that'd be tough to live with, dude.
100%. And that's the
Yeah,
thing people don't realize is you have to make those split-second decisions. Man, am I going to stop that car and see if that's them? And if I don't, and it is the person, they get killed, I got to live with that.
yeah,
And here's the thing, I think we as a society have to realize is we're seeing these 30-second, 4 or 5 minute videos, and we're basing it that that's the absolute totality of the circumstances that we're seeing, and we're just seeing a small snippet of it. And we
yeah,
really need to slow down and let these things play out before we rush to judgment and say, man, that guy is condemned, we're going to throw the book at him. It doesn't matter if it's a criminal, a cop, whoever. We have to kind of slow down and think there's probably a little bit more to that than this little video we're watching before we start condemning everybody and throwing the book at them and getting rid of them and saying, we're done with you. So I just use that example because it could have went, it could have been the kidnapping victim, could have been the kidnapping suspect. Turns out it wasn't. But we would have, if they would have just stopped, I would have went up there and said, hey, are you who I'm looking for? Nope. Okay, have a good day. But
yeah,
then it's a social media post and it didn't even go the way it did. And we're getting dragged through the mud and it didn't even go bad. That's just how the world is today, and we have to slow that world down and say, are we really seeing the whole picture? So that's my
yeah.
word of advice to everybody out there is just before you condemn somebody, take a deep breath and slow down
Yeah.
a little bit.
Let both sides come out, especially if you're
Yep.
not in the middle of it. If you're not in the middle of it, just let both sides kind of come out. If you are in the middle of it, man, call it. Just take a deep breath, and but those are unique. But like you said, man, they reoccur so often now, and I don't know. I've never. I think we had Dare. I was thinking about someone asked me the other day about you know but I'm like, I don't remember, and maybe it's just because of my age, but I don't remember anybody ever showing me during driver's ed, like if you get it's inevitable if you're speeding. It's just sometimes you might match a description. You never know, but when you have that police interaction of hands on the wheel, if it's at night, turn your dome light on, hands on the wheel, you know, just listen. You can have your stuff ready if you want to, but just listen, because we know as a person sitting in the car, you don't know what's going on. Oh, okay, I was speeding. All right, now we can get to the end results. If it's a ticket, if it's whatever, that's fight that in court because everything's on video now. But I don't ever remember anybody until I think we may have showed some kids when at some point in time like this is what you should do when a police officer pulls you over. Just a little education on that I think would go a long ways too.
100%. I was a little weird. I grew up in a police household, so
Yeah,
I kind of got the 411 on how to interact with law enforcement. But I remember my driver's ed, and it was, teachers and coaches from the high school teaching
yeah.
it. So you're right. I mean, just those small things can make those situations go a lot better. And I agree wholeheartedly.
I grew up because the police was at my house a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did. I started in public safety when I was 15, so I was around police officers more. Just knew how to conduct. So I was around it. But a lot of folks aren't, and just we're talking about just the average Joe who's a banker and trying to go who's 10 over and gets pulled over. Like, does he's just like, well, I don't know what to do. I watch cops. And, your influence in a traffic stop is watching some police show where everybody gets out and shows their butt. Well, I thought that's what we were supposed to do is get out and show our butts. And versus where we have that a little bit of like, hey, just do this, and then this is kind of how that conversation will go. And you can always tell them, don't answer any questions. Like
Yep.
that's a perfect time. Like you don't have to just but do what's being asked of you, and everything will end up the way that it should. And you'll have if you end up getting a ticket or go whatever, you'll have your day to argue that. It's not on the side of the road. It's not the time or place.
I'll never forget when I was a fresh, baby cop. I stopped a car from out of state that was, driving through town for whatever reason. And I didn't realize, but I guess back in the day, if you stop somebody, it was customary for people to get out of the car and meet the officer as they're walking
Yeah,
up.
back in the day, yeah.
And, I'm a new cop, and so I'm like, hey, get back in the car. And the guy kind of started arguing with me, and it ended up going fine. But he was just super upset with me because I made him get back in that car. He said, "Well, this is how I've always interacted, and I've been driving since 1965, and I've always got out and met the cops." I'm like, and after speaking with some veteran cops after that, they're like, "Hey, like back in the day, that's how they taught people was you get out and meet the cop." And I learned something today in that everybody's gonna have a different interaction with how they handle that law enforcement experience.
Yeah.
The only thing I can do is control is how I treat them, and I try to just handle everything with respect. But I
Yeah.
laugh at that now because man, he thought I was just the biggest punk kid out there, and I was out there picking on him, and I ordered him back in the car, and I'm like, man, sir, I'm just trying to keep everybody safe out here. We're in the middle of a busy U.S. interstate out here. I don't want you getting run over.
Yeah,
And that's all it
like I
was.
remember that man. Trooper would get mad like they would walk back, sit in the trooper's car. Trooper write him a ticket. Trooper never got out of the car. Like I ain't my job. You made me walk up there. You're getting two tickets. I remember hearing stories like that. Tell me,
Yeah.
um, tell me about leaving law enforcement during COVID. Walk us through that season and what that taught you about resilience.
Yeah. So I was a supervisor at a small municipal agency just outside of Tulsa, and COVID hit. Everybody's locking down. People are dying. We were already short staffed, and I was just burnt out. And I look back on it now, and I really wish I'd have had somebody to be able to talk to that wasn't like job related. Like
Yeah.
I wish I had somebody that was like, hey, where do you want to end up career wise? Where do you want to end up in life? And I was so burnt out, I started throwing applications everywhere. I'm gonna go, be a financial analyst. I'm gonna go, work for New York Life, and the insurance company calls me and said, hey, you want to take over an insurance agency? Absolutely. Yeah. You're going to make all this money. And man, they sold me a bill of goods. Um, it went terrible. World's worst time to take a fully commissioned job is during the middle of a pandemic, folks. Um, it went absolutely terrible and I failed. But here's the good thing about that is when somebody fails in life, you can learn from that. And I've woke up one day and I said, you know what? A buddy of mine I saw on Facebook, he was getting his master's degree, and I love him to death. But man, If he can do it, I 100% can do it. And so I was like, let's go get my master's degree. So I knocked that out, finished that up. Now I'm working on my doctorate. I've got probably 8 months left on that. But I would have never came out of my comfort zone if I had just stayed there and been a city cop,
Yeah.
enjoyed being a nighttime supervisor, laying low. So that failure has set me up for more success down the road. But I have to recognize that, hey, I did fail. It's okay. How am I going to respond to that? And so I try to tell people now, especially as I start doing this life and career coaching stuff, is that have a plan for where you want to get to in life. Have somebody that you can rely on outside of the job, because you kind of like you said earlier, cops, all they want to do is argue amongst each other. Like, I don't want to talk shop, when I'm not at work. I need somebody away from the job that wants to talk about just non-cop stuff. Have that support system in life. If you don't have somebody, find somebody, but have a plan of where you want to get to and how you're going to get there. Because if you make a rash decision like I did and say, man, I'm going to take up this insurance agency, and it doesn't work out, you got to scramble to try to get back. And it's not fun. But you know what? I've learned from it, and I'm on the bounce back now. And I truly believe that you can learn from your failures in life.
Failure's the best teacher, dude. I think the thing I'd add when you get into the police officers, how we all kind of things like we get to see a lot, we get to do a lot. And I don't take advice from folks who hadn't kind of walked on a path.
100%.
Had some failures, had some things, had some setbacks, just some folks that's already got it right, has always got it right. There's some glass there in most cases because it's just none of us ever get it 100% right, or there's some manufactured celebrity that you're leaning in that's where you're not giving out the whole story there. So I think I always like to add that in. And when you get the other thing I tell you with that is I we had a group of police officers, and the thing that I probably missed, and I had shared this with a couple other guys, and a couple of them, one of them has said, "Yep, we operate just like you." And there's a couple guys that are like, "Nope," is making sure you have friends outside of the job, and just somebody that can come along and say, "Hey, you guys are really burning it at both ends right now. You might want to take a break before you drive yourselves crazy or over a cliff." And that's what you can get if you have friends outside of the job. Is making sure that you have that. It's just a little extra thing. Somebody you catch up with every couple weeks just to go through and let them hear your lifestyle and the things you're doing, because you might be drinking too much. You might be spending too much time at sitting in parking garages, after shift and having a cold one or whatever, and not being home like you should or whatever. I think you need to look at that too, Brent.
100%. And to this day, I've got a group text between me and a couple buddies that are not in law enforcement, and it's literally dedicated. We talk about sports pretty much 24/7 in there,
Yeah.
but it keeps me sane, and it keeps me from not stressing out about work or life in general. And we keep it lighthearted in there and agree wholeheartedly. And you touched on a key point. Cops, first responders, your firefighters, your EMTs, paramedics, a lot of times we don't, like, if you haven't been through it and you hadn't seen the crazy stuff we've seen, you do discount a lot of people and say, man, you hadn't seen anything.
Yeah.
And so I agree wholeheartedly in that you got to have some good friends within the job too. Um, I talked to a buddy of mine last night, actually, that, man, we talk probably 2 or 3 times a week. And, we work together, we have a good time together. And, every once in a while we'll talk about work, but most of the time it's just us BSing and, blowing off a little bit of steam because we know what we've been through. And that's why we
Well,
get along so well. And so I agree wholeheartedly. You got to have a little bit of mixture of both.
when you mix in the failure word, and this is a thing I like to point out for non-public safety folks, because I've got to work where I got to work in careers where life and death mattered. Public safety folks fail so hard because they treat everything as if it were life or death. So when you make a mistake just in everyday life, or you forgot to close the door, whatever, it has a high priority because you made a mistake. And if you make a mistake here, there's a good chance that it's going to show up in your other areas of your life and hesitation and whatever. So I think the other thing is it's harder for public safety, law enforcement, firefighters, EMT, all the stuff you just mentioned. It's harder to recognize those simple mistakes because there's failures, and we fail so freaking hard sometimes, instead of just being like, it's not the end of the world, it's not life or death, move on. Because um, we'll treat minuscule things like it's life or death. And you're like, wait a minute, this should not get the same attention as if I had been in a shootout, or if I had forgot the drug box on a call, or the life pack batteries were dead when we went to shock someone, whatever. Back in the day, is the hey, you forgot to do X, Y, or Z, shouldn't hold the same amount of stress, right? But it does.
Yep.
One of the few
Wholeheartedly.
industries.
And yeah, and that's something I've had to truly try to work on, is that don't jump feet first, head first, totally into things, because that's how we handle things. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times they are life and death in our line of work, and then now that when I'm trying to adjust a little bit more to the civilian world, it's like, hey, you can handle that a little bit later. Like, it'll be okay if you don't get this done right this second. And that is something that first responders truly have to work on, is slowing down, taking that extra beat and saying, it'll be okay. This ain't
I,
life or death.
I was fixing phones were ringing off the hook one time, and I was fixing I was fixing like the internet wasn't coming up on the right. I mean, like we're talking, but it's a little chaotic. There's phones ringing. People are like, hey, can someone help me? And there's a lot going on, and I'm just working through my thing. And the lady I was helping, she goes, how do you manage all this and stay calm? And I go, nobody's shooting at me. Nothing's on fire. We're good. Like, it's just, you just got to focus on what you're doing. But just that was my whole thing. I was like, heck, I've done this in way worse situations than what I'm doing right now.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. I always tell people now, and you're gonna probably laugh when I say this, but the thing that prepared me best for getting into law enforcement was being a sports official growing up.
I can only
Because
imagine,
I could
dude.
take, listen, those drunk college kids that were griping at me during our intramural flag football at Oklahoma State, they probably gave me a harder time than most criminals did.
Yes.
Uh, and so that prepared me well for law enforcement. And then now, like, hey, listen, I've seen and done a lot of crazy and stupid stuff. You ain't gonna get me worked up now very often. And so
No.
you're right. These things that shape us through life prepare us to people in the civilian world are like, how do you deal with that? And I'm like, listen, this is probably about the 36th most exciting thing that's happened to me this year. Like, this is way down on my priority list of, man, because I'll give you a good example. COVID's going on during the world. There was a lady, she was wheelchair bound, but she had a lot of mental health issues, and she'd come up to the local casino we would have because, I don't know why she ended up there, but I'll never forget, she was laying in the middle of the road one night. And so I thought she needed help. So I stop out, hop out, and man, she cussed me like a dog. I don't need your effing help, blah, 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 blah. Okay, man, well, will you please get out of the roadway? And so she gets back in her chair and gets out of the roadway. Never did find out why she was laying in the middle of the roadway. But about 8 months later, I'm running my insurance agency in Tulsa, and I walk outside, and there's like a little convenience store in the corner of the building down there. And there sits that lady sitting down there in the wheelchair down at the end of the business complex. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And so I know how she acts, and so I purposely like walked all the way around the parking lot away from her, tried not to catch her attention, come out, go in the store, grab my drink or whatever, and I'm walking back, and she starts just yelling this crazy stuff like at the top of her lungs, like, people are out here trying to rape me, and I'm like, what is going on? And I'm looking around, and I'm the only one in the parking lot. And I'm like, is she talking to me? But it's just one of those things that, like, a normal person would have been like, oh my God, I gotta call the cops.
Yeah.
But what are they gonna do? Unless she wants to get help, they're not gonna take her anywhere to like commit her.
Yeah.
But like it was just one of those things that I tried getting her help when I was a cop, and she didn't want it. But
We
she's
have
got
needs
mental health
some.
issues, and that's a challenge we face in America today is mental health issues.
Yeah, it's a big
And
deal.
now looking back on it, when I was in the insurance agency, I was like, there's definitely nothing I can do now. I know who she is. I know she's pretty much harmless. So I just kind of ignored her and kept on walking. But I was like, man, the world's, the synchronicity in the world. Like she followed me to where now I'm not in law enforcement. I'm running
Yeah,
to her again, and I knew as soon as I saw her, I was like, I know who that is.
it's that. And when you do that is and try not. I have some friends help explain to me. It's like your experience is your experience. Don't um your worst day is going to be way worse than this person over here, but don't discount that these folks are having a bad day too. And the example
Yep.
I gave someone the other week was I got a text from this lady, and she goes, my son sent a really bad email out. And I was like, oh God. And then she goes, they went to the school email. And I'm like, well, that's just going to trigger some negative stuff for the school. And she goes, your kid was on the list. And I'm like, all right. So I called my son. I'm like, hey, don't open no emails till I get home. Let's see what's up. So she texts me back. She's like, I'm very so like she is just going down. Like, I'm so sorry. It's, da 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 da. And I'm like, I get home and I don't know, man. It was just like a funny meme. It was nothing of. It was something very, and it wasn't inappropriate for school email, yes, but it was. Yeah, I mean, it's like a funny cartoon or something other. And but me in
Yep.
my head, I, I was like, so when I called her and I go, "Hey, we good? You good?" She goes, "You sure you're not upset?" I'm so sorry. And I'm like, "Can I tell you something?" She's like, or I actually ran into her in person, so she see my face. I'm like, "Can I tell you something?" She's like, "What?" I said, They weren't bad." She goes, "Are you serious?" And I go, "I listen. Just so you know, I've dealt with a whole lot worse. All right." I said, so, and she goes, "Okay, well, thank you." So she was so because it was traumatic to her because that's some of the worst she'd
Yep.
ever seen, I guess. Right? So
Yep. And you're exactly right in that, like someone else, their worst day may
yeah,
not really be that bad to you, but it matters to them.
yeah,
And just that little bit of saying, "Hey, like it's gonna be okay" to her probably made her weak. In that, man, he didn't take it, he didn't overreact, he didn't freak out. We
yeah,
got to realize that as a society, like, hey, just because it's not bad to us doesn't mean it's not bad to them. How we
yeah,
treat them is can make the world a 10 times better place.
yeah. Let their and not overshadow their relevance. But and I've said that one time because we just talk about kids in general, and my friend was like, "Don't your kid's bad day is going to be their bad day. Don't undermine it by saying, well, let me tell you what a bad day really looks like, because that will just it won't help the conversation any." So I try to be mindful of that, and just kind of sometimes you'll find me chuckling, going, "I can't believe I'm having to sit here and listen to this right now," but
Hmm.
um, that's really cool. You're with tell me how this combination works for you now. You got all your police experience, which I can tell you. I can tell you a lot about. But man, I can tell you where I've never spent any time is in academia. And now you're a doctoral student. How do those two worlds kind of mesh together to help you with your view on leadership, dude?
I had a very bad interaction with the supervisor when I was a young cop. He kind of dressed me down in front of a couple other agencies, and he asked me a question, and I answered, and he just started cussing me like a dog and said, "I should write you up because you're back talking me," and blah 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 blah. And from that moment forward, he lost all credibility in my eyes because you asked me a question, I answered, and then you threatened to write me up because you asked me a question. Um, so that's when I decided that, hey, I'm gonna get my master's, I'm gonna get my doctorate. I wanted to do it in leadership because I've seen bad leadership in
Yeah,
practice. And, now that I've been exposed to all these different leadership theories and coaching styles and stuff like that, a lot of those things we're already doing, we just don't realize it. And so now the way I apply it is now I've got a little bit more facts that I can back up and say, listen, these people that are way smarter than me, I can apply this. This is where it comes from. This is how we can use it in our field. And this is how we can make it better. Because at the end of the day, if you just go to a leadership at a granular level, you truly want people to treat you how you would want to be treated,
yeah,
and you can build on that from there. And there's 1,000 different ways to skin a cat, but at the granular level, treat people how you want to be treated and add to it from there. And so, as silly as that sounds, that's my life motto is that's where I
Spot
start
on.
at and I start building on it from there.
The thing where I think where you make an amazing case, because here's the thing. In law enforcement, leadership is an assigned role. It's not like we're picking up arms and everybody's following you. Is you're assigned a role, and then once you get the role, you got the title, but it doesn't necessarily come with the word leadership under it. That's something you got the title. And the last thing, or the first thing I see a lot of folks do sometimes is they fumble because they think the title is going to earn all the things. It's not.
Well, it's funny you touch on that because my first time being a actual corporal, assigned to me, I don't think I did bad, but I didn't know any better to actually have any leadership training. And so I was literally just doing what I was doing all the time, just going out there and being a cop. Looking back on it now, the second time through, I actually got some leadership training at a bigger agency. There's a lot of things I could have done better. And so you're right. 95% of the time, people get promoted in law enforcement because they've been there the longest, or that, hey, they're friends with whoever. That doesn't mean that you're a leader. That just means you got the title of being, hey, a corporal or sergeant or whatever the case may be. We truly have to change this profession and make every person a leader. Because if I show up to your house in your moment of need, you want me to be able to make a decision that's correct, efficient, and gets the problem solved. That's what a leader is. That title's irrelevant, in my opinion. Anybody can be a leader. That title's just saying, hey, I'm the one that makes the final decision at the end of the day. So, I truly think that we need to start preparing our first responders to be able to handle those things efficiently and do it quickly on our own and not have to rely on somebody to say, should I take this person to jail or should I tow this car? No, make that decision, follow policy, follow law, and do it from the heart. And that's my mission is just be able to train every officer and say, you know what, you can make that decision because you are a leader.
Jocko talks about it in a sense of decentralizing command. He firmed up some cool words to add to good leadership that we were all kind of doing. He added the terms that we probably were lacking back in the day, but that was kind of how we operated: is take ownership of your area. And man, I tell you, when I got to do task force work, is we never really had failures. We would just come in and own what happened because you can't control what happened, and your response it may have been like, "Yay," because we all could do things a little bit better. But once you found that empowerment of nobody was long as we were not just grossly negligent and dumb, if we were just making decisions and moving, hey, next time let's take a look at this, or hey, solid job, let's build off of that into some more. Let's make sure we bring these things, like when we were back briefing or whatever operation we may have done. It's taking ownership in your decisions, and then layering in those decisions where they can be made at that officer level. And in business, everyone, this is what I always kind of teach like I always call them number twos, maybe somebody who works closely to the owner, right hand person is, I always say, always remember when business is visualize you writing a check out of your checking account. Like, can you cover it? And when you start adding zeros and you go, can you cover the dollars that this decision is going to make through just for all these things? If you can't, make the decision. But if you can't write the next zero, go see the owner. Just sit down and go, hey, let me ask you a question real quick. Where are you at? Where are you at on this? It's no big deal. Law enforcement the same way. But we overcomplicate simple decisions, I think, sometimes.
100%. 100%.
Where do you want to are you we had talked a little bit, you were applying for some jobs, but where do you feel like you're going to see yourself blossom in leadership coaching, or where do you we was talking about people having a plan. Brent, what's kind of what you like to do with your stuff that you're putting together, career coaching and
Oh man, until I finish my doctorate up, I mean, I probably will stay in law enforcement full time
yeah.
just because steady paycheck, steady work
Yeah.
hours. Um, But once I finish that up, I definitely see myself doing some like leadership and career coaching, consulting, stuff like that, because there's a lot, kind of like you touched on earlier. There's not much that's going to get me worked up or excited. There's a lot of things I can do to apply what I've learned in law enforcement to help other people out. Just to be that ear to, hey, where do you want to end up at? How can I help you get there? What can we do to prepare you to get there? I feel like I have a lot to offer in that area. So that's probably where eventually it's going to pull me. And there's so many chief of polices out there, sheriffs, whatever the case may be, kind of like you touched on. They're either the longest one there or no one else wanted the role,
Yeah.
and now you're the leader. My, I want to be the person that helps you out. I don't care to get rich from it. I just want to be able to say, hey, I helped you run your agency how it should be run. Treat
Yeah.
your officers with respect. Treat your citizens with respect. Handle the job appropriately. And so that's eventually long term where I see myself over the next probably 5 to 10 years. But right now, I still got a few years left for sure of copping in me,
Yeah.
catching some bad guys. And, I'm trying to grow the podcast and, go from there.
That's solid though, dude. I was curious about that because it is like I don't, and you'll hear me on some of my shows where I'm real big on like, man, I think there's something to be said for public service, and I think there's absolutely a element of what I would sit down with you, Brent, and go, listen, man, it's good you're being a police officer. Get your 5 to 10 years in. Don't pull out that 401k or that retirement. Let's move it to your next thing. Let's go now. Let's go take your experience and let's go teach and mentor. So I try to teach young cops this. So like back in my day, when you got hired at the county, it was a forever plan. Like it was your whole thing. You're going to retire here at 50 and 25 year service. They're going to give you a really cool little small clock, and then you're going to have your pension. Come in here and risk your life for every day for the rest, for this 25 years. And I would totally do everything all over again because it was the coolest job. But what I tell people now is like, as kids start coming along, as your life starts changing, and you want to move away from shift work, take those skills and go to your next thing. This is not a forever plan. You don't have to be here forever.
100%. And I actually, part of my doctor, we have to do like coaching sessions with other students each week. And the
Yeah.
cool thing about that is we all have different backgrounds. And so I think I'm the only cop in there. There's a couple military people, there's a couple, educators in there, there's some business people in there. And the person I was coaching with, she said, you talk a lot about being a cop. I said, yeah, I do. She said, but what I hear you saying is you enjoy helping people.
Yeah.
She said, have you ever thought about that you love being a cop, but you truly love helping people? She said, could you help people being a coach? Yeah. Could you help people consulting them in their business work? Yep. She said, so maybe you need to change the mindset of I'm a cop to I can help people. And so that's
Yeah.
something I've tried to work on over the past 4 or 5 months is changing that mindset of, man, I'm going to show up to work every day and just go catch criminals to how can I help people overall?
Yeah.
And it takes a mindset shift on my end.
It
And so that's something I'm working on myself.
dude, then don't lose that. And here's why I tell you that is don't lose that relatability, because what you're going to find is if you can find how you are helping at the end of whatever. I went to work for a trailer dealership, and I couldn't wrap my head around, like, I was like, trailer dealership. This is just putting things on a ball, or we're selling. I'm helping a landscaper, and then once I got down to my defining moment when I realized everything I was doing was helping that person accomplish what they were trying to do. I got 1,000 times better at how I qualify. I got 1,000 times better at my conversation when I could see the end result was me helping them. Now, when I go in, like I teach marketing, I teach a bunch of other business stuff. When I roll into teaching, I always do this like little knowing your audience type thing. And it gets down to the problem that you solve in your business. And this is how we help. And if we can approach it from a helping standpoint, we're never going to lose. because you're not selling anybody nothing. Then you're guiding them to Brent, who's the right career coach because of his law enforcement experience, or you're guiding them over here to product X because it best matches with the problem that they have. So what you're saying, dude, is 100% spot on as far as the relatability between all of them.
Yep, 100%. And that's my podcast. I first started it. I want to just do law enforcement stuff only. And then I jumped in and I started, we connected through Podmatch, and I started meeting all these people from Podmatch that are like Disney executives and all kinds of business people. But the cool thing about that, and everybody's like, well, I don't know how I can apply that to the first responder world. Leadership is not specific just to first responders.
Yeah.
There is leadership, there's training stuff, ideas that, hey, maybe your idea that works great in advertising, we can apply that to law enforcement in the way we operate. And so that's why I tell people all the time, they're like, man, I just don't know how I can help your podcast out. And I said, bringing new ideas into the first responder world is helping out.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I've met so many great guests just by doing a podcast. And here's the deal. How many cops, firemen, EMTs, paramedics? We got 24, 48, 8, 10-hour shifts, a lot of time in the car. That's how I started a podcast, because I love listening to podcasts and taking those new ideas in. And I
Personal
tell my
development,
guests
man.
all the time, this is not a job for me. This is me actually getting to learn something from you as I get to share your message with my audience.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, like, I enjoy podcasting more than anything,
yeah, same.
because I get to share other people's message with my audience. And I'm never one to say, I don't want you on my show because you're not a cop.
Yeah.
Like, bring your ideas to the first responder world. And if it resonates with one person, that's one more person that, your ideas out there in the world. So,
No, you can't go wrong with that, man. I'm the same way. I very seldom say no to my guests because I'm intrigued by. I'll read some of them. They'll send in their stuff, and I'm like, we find a connection. So I've passed on a couple, just because I was like, it's too salesy, or it's just I could see like where we were headed. It wasn't the conversation. 'Cause I love a good conversation, right? That's just, if you want to talk to me, let's just talk. Kind of like what you and I did today. I had some questions because I write down just in case I can't get it going. Because I've had that with some guests where they're just not as engaged or they're introverted. So I have some questions where we'll prod us along there if we need to. But most of the time with me, it's a conversation. I posted your LinkedIn as we wrap up. I posted your LinkedIn in the chat so everybody will be able to see that. It'll be in the comments, folks. So make sure you connect with Brent. Anything you want, any other way that you like for folks to get in touch with you, Brent, or is LinkedIn the best way?
yeah, LinkedIn. I'm the First Responder Playbook on YouTube,
Yeah,
Facebook. I'm on pretty much any podcast streaming platform out there.
that's
Give
right.
it a listen. Like I said, it's overall arching theme. Sure, it's law enforcement, first responder related, but there's a lot of non-first responder topics in there, and pretty much anybody can listen to it and learn something. If you want to learn a new topic, jump right in. I'd love to have you. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, because here's the deal. I can learn something from you. You can learn something from me. And I can always use a new friend in this world, make it a little bit better place.
That's
So,
right.
guys, reach out to me. And Jeff, thanks for having me today.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you being here, brother. Absolutely great conversation. Folks, I'm going to be joining Brent on his, as soon as I get my butt back on his schedule. And then we'll continue the conversation over there. So make sure you connect with him. Law enforcement, folks that are out there tuning in, man, you got definitely listen to Brent here and listen to some of the things he's able to provide you, maybe just on some career choices and decisions, because it's just super beneficial to everybody when we can all come together for the greater good, like you said. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you being here, man.
Thanks for having me.